On to your third speaker now. She is returning for her second Aloha Festival. She describes herself as a woman, bisexual, a survivor. She's a Spanish-English interpreter, an activist, a speaker, a writer, an educator, poet, and a specialist in obstetric violence, as well as a feminist, and she also finds time to volunteer at Philia. She is here to ask, 1 year on, where are we on reproductive rights? Please welcome Mara Ricoy.
Thank you very much. Remind me to show the bio for next year. Thank you. I have to say I am very surprised they called me back. You have the temerity. So I want to thank, first of all, the sisters of, the Fourth Valley Feminists to bring me back. What has happened in the last year? I have learned to say aloha without sounding like I'm in Hawaii. That's an improvement. Of course, my eyesight has deteriorated. I prefer to stand up than to sit down. What else has changed? Oh yeah, and also, Elaine Miller, well, I think she's gone now, has proved that journalists don't know what is a vulva or a vagina. Making sure her business, is still going. And giving us a new brave heart for the feminism. So, thank you, Elaine, for that. In terms of childbirth and reproductive rights, we had to read the new report that we get about perinatal mortality. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's called Embrace, with various R's that I can never put in place. Unfortunately, as I'm getting older, I'm going to have to read this data. I used to be very good at remembering this, but just to be safe. And I think it's important. So forgive me, I want to give you some numbers, because I do think they matter. So 229 women died during or up to 6 weeks after the end of their pregnancies between 2018 and 2020 from pregnancy-specific causes or conditions made worse by pregnancy. So we have seen an increase of 24%. Taking into account the surviving babies and previous children, 366 motherless children remain. Of the 229 women who died during or up 6 weeks after the end of their pregnancies, 9 women died from COVID-19. Of those 9 women, 5 were Asian women and 3 were Black women. Changes to maternity services and pressures because of the pandemic also contribute to some of other maternal deaths. Now, Black women were 3.7 times more likely to die compared to white women. And Asian women were 1.8 times more likely to die compared to white women. Further, 289 women died between 6 weeks and 1 year after the end of pregnancy. Now, 1 in 9 of the women who died had experienced severe and multiple disadvantage. The main elements of multiple disadvantage were mental health diagnosis, substance misuse, domestic abuse. Women were 3 times more likely to die by suicide during or up to 6 weeks after the end of pregnancy in 2020 compared to 2017 to 2019. So we're talking about it tripled. Maternal suicide was also a leading cause of death in women between 6 weeks and a year of their pregnancies ending, accounting for 18% of women who died. At least half of the women who died by suicide, and the majority from substance misuse, had multiple adversity with a history of childhood and or adult trauma frequently reported. And I'm getting emotional because I could easily be one of those. Cardiovascular disorders and psychiatric disorders are now equally responsible for maternal deaths in the UK, accounting for 30% of the women who died up to 6 weeks after the end of pregnancy. 86% of the women died in the postnatal period. Now, we're talking about this happening in the UK. These are the reports that we get. And we're talking about women killing themselves. We're talking about this while yesterday I was talking to a lecturer in midwifery that tells me that basically midwives don't want to be midwives anymore because they're making the job too difficult. If I look at my country, Spain, they have this sort of number, which is that pretty soon we're going to have 40% less midwives. So this is all happening. And this to me is really deeply connected to women living in patriarchy. This is what it is. We're talking about women that have been abused, that have a history of abuse, that they have worse conditions. We have women who, because they are of a different race, they have to suffer greater trauma. They have more morbidity. So there is, of course, the other side of the story. If I look beyond the UK, I was talking recently to an activist in the Republic of Congo, and I came talking about obstetric violence. And of course, we have to go farther into the issues that they face there. So for example, just to remind us all, because I think we often forget, every year, so it doesn't matter if it was last year or the year before that, every year, between 50,000 and 100,000 women in the sub-Saharan continent and also in parts of Middle East Asia, they're going to have a condition called obstetric fistula. Obstetric fistula, for those of you who doesn't know, is a hole that happens to occur between the wall of the birth canal and the rectum or the bladder. This happens because of prolonged labors. This happens because women don't have access to the most basic care, because they don't have anyone that can do that for them, or there's not an infrastructure to take that woman to hospital. Now, during obstetric fistula, the babies die in the majority. And then women are repelled, ostracized in their community because they become incontinent. That happens every year, not just last year. This year, we also celebrated the 50 years of Roe v. Wade in the United States. And I say celebrated because last year, Roe v. Wade was overturned. Now, the leading cause of maternal mortality in the world is still unsafe abortions. There is 73 million of abortions each year. Out of those, 45% are unsafe. Not to talk, coming back to Africa, of the women in Africa and other parts of the world that don't have the most simple help by having a synthetic oxytocin injection to control postpartum hemorrhage, and they die. I don't even have a number for that. And it's that simple. It's just an injection. The difference, between a life and a death. That's within childbirth, that's maternity, that's some snippets of our world, the world in the bigger picture. But then if we look farther afield, not just birth, 85,000 women died by homicide, by intentional killing. Out of those, 45,000 died at the hands of their partners or a family member. A small, war there by a male family member or a male partner. We're talking about 5 women per hour dying at the hands of somebody that they trust, that they know. So those are numbers, those are things that they are happening around the world. And what I'm trying to say with this, and listening to the previous speakers, is that the women who kill themselves by suicide because they couldn't cope 1 year after the birth or some weeks after the birth, the women who are killed by their family members, the women who die every year, the baby girls that somebody decided that, to kill them because they are girls, all of those cases, they suffer from the same ailment, which is to be a woman in patriarchy. This is all a collective thing, and that's something that they couldn't escape. They are born women. We are born women. We die women. Now, what the world is trying to do, because being a woman is not a feeling. Being a woman is surviving a war. And what the world is trying to do with that is actually sell tickets to that war as if it was a theme park. And it's something I'm not going to allow. When we are born and grow and die suffering this oppression, is for someone to use my body and the experience of being a woman as if it was a tourism. So I will not allow that. So I thank you all for fighting that fight.